Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good afternoon, my dear students. Today we start our lecture, which includes thinking about the experience. Previously, we started the discussion of the grammar translation method, and we have taken a particular background related to this method. Today, we will discuss certain important points as a general review to what we have mentioned previously, and at the same time we will outline important aspects in the experience of the grammar translation method. Number one, first we understand that the students start the lesson with reading a passage as a literary text written in the target language, which attracts the attention to the fact that the most important goal of teaching English according to the grammar translation method is to teach students how to read and write the literature written in the target language, and also the emphasis upon written language as well as knowledge of culture that the students gain by studying the literature of the target language. In item number 2, the students translate the passage from English into Spanish. In this case, we understand that an important task for the students is to be able to translate from the native language to the target language and from the target language to the native language, to the extent that student success is judged according to their ability to translate from the native language to the target language. Item number 3 is related to the use of the native language. The teacher uses the native language as a medium of instruction. Whenever the teacher gives the students instructions and the student asks questions in the native language or in the student's native language, because the student's ability to communicate in the target language is not a goal. The goal is only to teach them to read and write the target language. Also, we move to item number 4, in which the students write the answer to comprehension questions. Comprehension questions are given in relation to the passage that the students discussed in the class. So, since the students are supposed to know how to read and write the literature of the target language, they are supposed to answer or to write answers to questions in the target language related to the passage. If we move to item number 5, the teacher decides whether the answer is correct or not. In this case, we mentioned that the grammar translation method is a teacher-centered method in which the teacher is the center of the teaching classroom. The teacher is the authority. He gives the students instructions, and the students only receive the instructions and follow what the teacher says. This includes deciding if the answer is correct or not and providing the students with the correct answer. Item 6 is related to translation of words. The students are supposed to know a native equivalent to each word or to each vocabulary item in the target language. We mentioned from the beginning that it is very important to memorize lists of words in order to be able to give equivalents to each word. So memorization of vocabulary items is an important task that the students are supposed to do in learning language according to the grammar translation method. Item 7 is related to attracting the students' attention to the similarities between the native language and the target language in order to facilitate learning. by attracting their attention to the similarities between the target language and the native language. Item 8. The students are given a grammar rule for use of a direct object with two-word verbs. In this case, it is important to mention the way in which grammatical rules are explained according to the grammar translation method. Explanation of grammar is done deductively. The grammatical rules are introduced deductively. The students are presented with rules and asked to memorize the rules and sometimes state the rules. Then they are given the chance to apply these rules in examples. And this is also related to the following item, which is item number 9, in which the students apply a rule to examples they are given. The same idea, which is the grammar is taught deductively. And the students are given the rules first, and then they are given the chance to apply the rules in examples. If we move to item 10, we find that the students memorize vocabulary. Of course, we talked about memorization of vocabulary, but now I want to add an idea that memorization of vocabulary is also given as a kind of mental exercise, since we work according to the principle of faculty psychology, in which the students are supposed to do a lot of exercises as a kind of mental exercise in order to empower their mental ability. 11. The teacher asks the students to state the grammar rule related to item number 8 and 10, in which we mentioned that number 8 and 9, in which we mentioned that the grammatical rules are introduced deductively. The last item, the students memorize present tense, past tense, and past participle forms of one set of irregular verbs. Again, the students are supposed to do a lot of work, which is related to memorization of grammatical rules and the application of these rules in examples after memorizing them. These are the most important aspects in relation to thinking about the experience. Now we move to another idea, which is reviewing the principles. In reviewing the principles, we will answer questions. These questions are supposed to be answered before we start teaching according to any method. So we will answer these questions not in relation to the grammar translation method only, but later on we will answer these questions in relation to all the methods and approaches that we will study by God's will. First, what are the goals of teachers who use the grammar translation method? It's very clear from the beginning that the goal is to enable the students to read the literature of the target language. Also, we have the idea of knowledge about culture of the target language, which is taken from the study of literary texts of the target language. So the most important goal is to enable the students to read and write the literature of the target language. Number 2, what is the role of the teacher and what is the role of the students? The teacher's role is related to the student's role. We talked about this previously. The grammar translation method is a teacher-centered approach in which the teacher controls everything. The teacher is the authority inside the classroom. That's why the students do what the teacher says passively, and they only follow what the teacher says or follow the teacher's instructions. If we move to item number 3, we will find the idea of some characteristics of the teaching and learning process. In most cases, this aspect or item number 3, which is related to the characteristics, is a kind of summary to all what is mentioned in the method, a summary to all important points that we are supposed to keep in mind when we study a particular method. The first important point that the students are taught to translate from one language into another. It is basic to know how to translate text and sentences from the target language to the native language and vice versa. The second important idea that the students are supposed to know something about aspects of the culture of the target language, which is something not new. We have mentioned this many times. Another important point which should be kept in mind that the students are introduced with the grammatical rules deductively, that they are supposed to start first with rules, then with application of rules and examples. Another important point is the idea of memorization of grammatical rules and memorization of vocabulary items, which includes the memorization of native language equivalents for target language vocabulary words. So these are the most important words or the most important ideas in the characteristics of the teaching and learning process, which is done according to the grammar translation method. In item number 4, we have a question which is related to the nature of students' teacher interaction. We mentioned previously that we have different patterns of interaction. We have students, teacher, teacher, students, students, whether individual students or group of students. The most common pattern of interaction according to the grammar translation method is teacher-students, in which the teacher gives the students instructions and the students follow the instructions. So we cannot find any students interaction, and sometimes we have little students-teacher interaction. Units or item number 5 related to how are the feelings of the students dealt with. Nothing is mentioned about this idea in relation to the grammar translation method, so we will move directly to item 6. How is the target language viewed and how is culture viewed? We mentioned many times that the target language is the language of literature. So the language is viewed as literary language, which is considered as superior to spoken language. Spoken language is not given any emphasis and is not included within the teaching and learning process. Culture, again, is viewed as consisting of literature and fine arts. So we can understand culture of the target language from studying different literary texts written in the target language. Now we move to item 7. What areas of language are emphasized? What language skills are emphasized? We mentioned that as language teachers, we should distinguish between language areas and language skills. Language areas include vocabulary, grammar, and phonology, while language skills include listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The first point is related to language areas. 2 areas are emphasized according to the grammar translation method: vocabulary and grammar. Both of them are emphasized, and in relation to vocabulary and in grammar, we have memorization. We have memorization of lists of vocabulary items and memorization of grammatical rules. In relation to skills, Again, it is very clear that written skills are emphasized and oral skills are not given any emphasis to the extent that the language instruction is given in the student's native language. Then we move to the role of student's native language in relation to the same idea that we have discussed in 7, that the student's native language is used as a language of instruction, and the students are supposed to translate the text from target language to the native language and vice versa. So in most cases, the student's native language is used when the teacher is interacting orally with the students. The next point is related to evaluation. We mentioned that a very important part of the teaching process is to evaluate students' performance or to evaluate students' progress. According to the grammar translation method, this is done by evaluating the student's ability to translate from native language into the target language and vice versa. Also, the evaluation includes the questions about the target culture and questions or asking the students to apply grammar rules in relation to the grammatical rules of the target language. So in this case, we have 3 ideas. Number 1, translation. Number 2, knowledge of the target culture. And number 3, the application of grammatical rules of the target language. The last item is related to the teacher's way of dealing with the students' errors. There are different ways and different techniques used by teachers to correct students' errors. According to the grammar translation method, the teacher asks another student to correct the error. If no students can correct the error, the teacher himself corrects the error or provides the correct answer. Thank you very much. This is our lecture for today. We will continue explaining our lectures in the same way. Thank you very much.